Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 211 of the podcast, or you're joining me live on Facebook or YouTube. Today is Sunday, October the 4th. And I told you guys last week, September came and went, huh? Everything's kind of flying by. We had our first presidential debate of the election season on Tuesday night. That was the real biggest fight of the week. Not going to get into too much detail on that one. I just got tequila drunk and enjoyed the fuck out of it. I don't get too much into my political persuasions here. And if you guys are here coming and looking for me to tell you who to vote for, then this country is truly fucked. The most I'll give you on my political beliefs is summed up by my shirt. For those of you watching the video version, I am an anti-prohibitionist. So whichever one of these nut jobs is looking to bring back prohibition, that's the one I'm not going to vote for. I know they were both alive during prohibition probably, so it's got to be in the back of their mind somewhere, and I am definitely against that. So no prohibition, Trump and Biden, you hear me? I know you're both listening. Wild times, man, wild times. President of the United States is in quarantine because he got the coronavirus. Crazy things happening out there. Lots of MMA. I'm solo today, if you couldn't tell. So feel free to join in on the conversation, folks that are tuning in here. Since it's October and it just started getting a little cool here in Florida. By a little cool, I mean like below 80 degrees. Still like shorts weather by any means, but I decided to jump into the spirit of the season, and I picked up some Oktoberfest beer. Haven't been drinking a whole lot of beer lately. Just trying to, drop the quarantine weight, and beer doesn't help with that. So I've been drinking a lot of tequila lately. But here we are, Bitburger Fest beer, or Oktoberfest beer. So I don't know about you guys. The first Oktoberfest beer I became familiar with was the Sam Adams, which is like, I believe they've changed the recipe since it first came out, but I remember it being like a really rich, like kind of sweet, like very fall spice forward beer, which is very much not what the German style Oktoberfest beers are. This Fest beer by Bitburger actually comes from Bitburg, Germany, which is in the eastern part of Germany, just north of Luxembourg, like right near the border of Berlin. So you have, a lot, not Berlin, of Belgium. Sorry. I know you guys aren't here for a geography lesson either, luckily. So right near Belgium. So you have a lot of like really interesting influences for the beer making process here, but they stay true to the German Oktoberfest style. It's very light. It is a little bit on the bitter side, but I feel like they balance that bitterness out a little bit, because the bitter flavor is what turns me off of a lot of German beers. I guess they're meant to be paired with like sauerkraut and stuff, and I don't really eat stuff like that, but this one is very nice, very balanced. It does have like a little sweetness on the back end. Yeah, very light, very fresh. A nice fall beer. I drink this and it makes me feel like the leaves are changing colors, even though they're not, because it's Florida and it's still almost 80 degrees out. So here we are, coming off of UFC on ESPN 16, headlined by bantamweights Holly Holm and Irene Aldana. I'm just going to call her Irene because it makes things easier for me. I like when things are easier for me. So this was, we're back to Fight Island again. I guess the next couple of cards are going to be here going into November. I think the fight cards are all going to be Fight Island going forward. So this main event, man, very one-sided for Holly Holm. I know a lot of people happy about that one. if you're the UFC, I don't know if you're happy with this result, because Holly is probably the biggest female star you have right now. I know a lot of you are immediately gonna start telling me Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko, and yeah, you can make those arguments, but I mean, as far as having a presence amongst casual fans, I just feel like Amanda Nunes and Shevchenko just don't get that push that they definitely deserve, because they're badass chicks. Holly Holm, though, her record is a tough one, man, because she kept getting put in these main events and these title shots, and was losing a bunch of them. But she looked phenomenal last night. So, they say like you're only as good as your last fight, and she looked incredible. You could tell the game plan from Aldana was to try and land that big left hook of hers. But Holly kept circling away from it, which is interesting, because normally you want to circle away from the power hand, but since she's aware of Aldana's power in that lead hook, she was circling the other way. And since it was a southpaw orthodox matchup, it's kind of okay to circle towards that power hand, because you're standing a little farther back as a southpaw, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, then forget I said anything. Don't even worry about it. But yeah, Holly did a great job controlling range in every sense. She was able to keep distance when she wanted to keep distance with that front leg side kick and with her jab, and she was able to close the distance when she wanted to close the distance. Her wrestling was the best we've ever seen it. I mean, she took down Aldana at will. Now, I know I wasn't listening to the broadcast on this. You guys know I tend to keep the volume down on it, because I don't like to be influenced too much. But I know leading into this fight, they were trying to push the narrative about Aldana having the second highest takedown defense, only to John Jones, in the UFC. Now, don't let that be a misleading fact. I mean, it is an impressive statistic, but she hasn't fought a whole lot of grapplers during her time in the UFC. It's been mostly stand-up fighters. If you look at her record, Ketlin Vieira in the last fight, she had the split decision loss to Raquel Pennington. Before that, it was Betch Correa. Mostly girls who are known. Maybe the best grappler she fought was Caitlin Chookagian back in 2017. But yeah, it's not like she's been in there with a bunch of women who are trying to take her down, and she's always stuffing their takedowns. That being said, all credit to Holly Holm. Her wrestling looked phenomenal. I think it looked the best it's ever looked. She took that fight to the ground at will. She was picking the perfect opportunities to take the fight to the ground. And, she really put the fight out of Aldana's hands. I got to give credit to both of these women for their cardio, because they both still looked pretty good at the end of the fight. Aldana never really, she showed signs of slowing down, but she didn't show like real signs of fatigue, in my opinion, especially with all the body shots she was taking, all those side kicks to the midsection. I don't think it knocked the wind out of her nearly as much as it should have. So you could tell she was conditioned for 5-round fights. And Holly Holm, of course, we know she's always in shape to do 25 rounds. So no surprise there. Carlos Felipe getting a win over Yorgan de Castro. I apologize, guys. I built this fight up last week to be something that it was not. I thought it was going to be like these guys kind of throwing bombs at each other. These guys are both guys that to me look like they could be fighting at 185 pounds. There's no need to be to be carrying that much extra weight. And then, when you don't get that early knockout and you guys are both kind of sluggish in there and it turns into like a sumo wrestling match, it's not that entertaining. The fast knockouts are great. Great highlight reels and they're fun. And these both of these guys have great personalities. They're very like dynamic dudes. But when those early knockouts don't come, it's nobody wants to watch that. So I don't know what the solution is here, but I think somebody was mentioning that maybe Felipe fight Tai Tuivasa next. So that could be a fun one. I'm all for that. I got to tell you guys, I had an interesting experience recently. I just reconnected with a buddy of mine from college who actually really got me into MMA. I was always kind of interested and I always kind of watched it, but he was the guy, and I'm not going to tell you his name because I think he's trying to keep himself on the down low. He was the guy that would tell me like, oh, you have to watch this fight. And he's the one who, or this fight or that fight, or, hey, the fight night's coming up on Wednesday. We got to watch it, he would make sure like I was watching everything. And, he would tell me how he was doing jujitsu and stuff and, made it sound more impressive than it probably was. But, he was training with Matt Serra and stuff. And after college, he we hung out a few times because he's from Long Island. And then he moved to Japan for a while and I guess changed his phone number and shut all his social media off and hadn't been in contact with him in years. I randomly sent him an email and then he sent me his phone number and we've been talking MMA and whiskey. It turns out we're into a lot of the same whiskeys and stuff, but I think everybody has that person who kind of got them into MMA, right? It's just this kind of sport where it's not like a football game where anybody on the street, you can just talk to them about it. There's a small community of people that are really into this sport. So I want you guys to reach out to me on social media. Tell me about the person who got you into MMA and if there was a cool story behind it. Were you training at a jiu-jitsu gym and you started watching MMA, or did MMA make you want to start training, or just none of the above? Was there just a friend of yours who was a big fan and they made you a big fan too? So reach out to me at MMA on the Rocks, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. And I want to hear your stories. It's always good to hear from you guys. I've heard both positive and negative feedback about me doing the solo shows. I do have a guest coming on the show next week, so it will not be a solo show. Some people said they miss Jeff, but they like me going off the cuff solo, which is what I do. I just sit here and have drinks and I talk for an hour without stopping. Whatever comes out is what you get. And then other people say that they just really miss Jeff and they want to hear me going back and forth. So let me hear your opinion on that too, because I've heard from quite a few people, but I think I need just a few more to make up my mind as far as what's going to go down the next few weeks while Jeff is still on his hiatus, how hard I'm going to work to obtain some guest hosts here. Let's talk about Jermain Derozan. Guillotine choke in the third round against Julianna Peña. I think nobody saw this coming. If you bet on Jermain Derozan by submission, you probably cashed in a nice paycheck. I don't know what the odds were on that, but obviously she's a world-class striker, world-class Muay Thai, fought a man, for God's sakes. I know nobody ever lets you forget that. That's it. You probably don't even if you don't know much about MMA, if you know who Jermain Derozan is, you know that she fought a man in Muay Thai. But man, she looked good in this fight. She looked real loose in there. She looked comfortable. And, she even looked comfortable with the takedown attempts from from Peña in there, who's a very good grappler, very good wrestler. I want to say what's up to my buddy Henzo Altuna tuning in all the way from Peru. Salud, my friend. So Randamie snatches this high elbow guillotine, palm to palm high elbow. Now this is something you have to have long arms to pull this off. It's a very tight choke. It can put people unconscious very quickly, but it's difficult to put on somebody, especially someone who's coming in the right way with like Julianna Peña was. She came in on a single and transitioned to a double leg and had her head on the outside. But usually with your head on the outside with the double leg, you're pretty safe as long as you're keep your back straight and keep your chin up. It's usually a pretty safe spot. But Randamie was able to kind of manipulate the position of Peña's head, and she was able to get that high elbow and put her unconscious. A lot of people were not expecting that. It's the first submission victory of her career. I don't know what you do with Jermain Derozan, man, because she did have a close fight with the champ Amanda Nunes, but she's not liked. A lot of people still have a bad taste in their mouth from when she, I guess, was supposedly ducking Cyborg. When she won that 145-pound championship and then kind of just gave the belt up and moved back to 135. A lot of people were not happy with her about that. I think she made a few enemies within the UFC with that move as well. And then, she lost to Amanda Nunes, but, she definitely had her spots in that fight. It's not like she got totally dominated. She rocked Amanda a couple times. Looked good on the feet, forced Amanda to bring the fight to the ground. So I don't know what you do with her. As far as Julianna Peña, maybe match her up with Aldana, and those two can both work their way back up the ladder. It's unfortunate because this is a division where the champ is tied up for a little while because, she just had a baby. Her partner had a baby, which is a beautiful thing. But we don't know how much time she's going to take before she's back in action. She's, she's got the belts in two divisions, and this bantamweight division, man, is kind of lean. I'm thinking that a rematch between Randamie and Aspen Ladd is probably appropriate, just because the last one ended kind of funny, with that early stoppage. That Aspen Ladd to this day says she wasn't out, and it was a kind of a weird one. So why not run that back? That would definitely make sense. So we'll see what they're gonna do. Kyler Phillips with a very impressive performance over Cameron Else. This guy is very dynamic, very unorthodox striking, great movement on the ground, great control on the ground. The few times he was on top, he just kept constantly moving, even if it gave Else the opportunity to get back up. He just kind of went with it. So that was a fun fight. He was a little worked up at the end of it, screaming in the opponent's face and stuff like that. I know a lot of people don't approve, but the kid looked good. Dusko Todorovic with the win over Daquan Townsend. This was a very one-sided fight. He finally got the TKO in the second round, where he was on top of him and just dropping bombs. And Townsend wasn't unconscious by any stretch, but, Jason Herzog was in there. He did a good job of ending this one, I think. Stopped Townsend from taking any unnecessary damage, because he took a lot of unanswered blows to the head in this fight, not just at the end of it, throughout the whole fight. Todorovic was very precise, very calculated on the feet, good control on the ground, and really took it to Townsend here. So that was an impressive victory. buddy Mark from Australia. What's going on, Mark? Sending his greetings from down under. Says he really liked the prelims in particular. We'll get there, buddy. Right now, we're on Carlos Condit and Court McGee. And this was a fight I was excited for. I thought it was going to be a lot grittier than it was. I hope I'm expressing that properly. But yeah, I thought this was a great performance for Carlos Condit. And I remember somebody was saying on Twitter last night, like, why is this fight on the prelims? And it was the featured prelims. And that's a simple answer. Carlos Condit has lost his last 5, and Court McGee is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. So that's why I was on the prelims, even though these guys are both legendary. And it's so funny because these guys, it seems like they've been around forever. They're only like 35 and 36 respectively. But this was the most comfortable we've seen Carlos Condit look in a long time. He controlled the distance well. It seemed like he was landing at will. It seemed like he was having fun again. After his last few fights, it seemed like he just didn't want it anymore. And I don't know what changed in his personal life or in his training or whatever else, but this was the first time in a long time we've seen a game Carlos Condit who was comfortable in that cage. He wasn't the natural born killer that we've come to know and love. He dialed back the aggression quite a bit. If you guys remember the old days of Carlos Condit in the WEC and even in the UFC, like when he fought Dan Hardy, the guy would see red and he would just be an absolute killer in there, which is great, but it's not really a sustainable style. So I'm glad to see him back in the win column, and I'm glad to see him composed in there. He smashed the fuck out of Court McGee's nose. Court McGee is going to be able to join the Andrei Arlovsky Nose Hall of Fame after last night because his nose was just smashed. It looked like when you take like a piece of silly putty and you put it on a table and just smash it, like hammer fist it. It was completely mushed in. So yeah, Condit gave him the old Arlovsky nose job in there. Cheers to everybody tuning in right now. If you missed the beginning of the show, I was talking about how I'm drinking some Fest beer, German beer from Bitburg, Germany. Very delicious, a little spicy, not too bitter, just the way I like my Oktoberfest beers. And yeah, Mark reminds me that Court fixed his own nose during the fight, but unfortunately by the end it was beyond repair. As good as a self-nose surgeon he probably is, couldn't bring that one back. And then we had a draw between Charles Jourdain and Joshua Coulibaugh. This was a fun fight. It was back and forth. The one judge gave it 30-27 to Coulibaugh. I don't know where that came from. I can't really tell you who won this fight. I'm good with a split draw here. Yeah, I think a lot of people were upset about this draw, but it happens. And then here was another one. Nassourdine Imavov and Jordan Williams. So Jordan Williams is an interesting character because he came through the Contender Series. He looked phenomenal on there. He's got great knockout power. What's unusual about this guy is he's a type 1 diabetic, which is a pretty serious medical condition, especially for a professional athlete, especially for a professional fighter, where you have to constantly be maintaining your weight and the calories that you take in while at the same time controlling your insulin and your blood sugar. So I imagine that presents a lot of challenges. He just plain faded in this fight, and Imavov was able to run away with it towards the end. He comes out really strong, and it's kind of puzzling why he fades. I don't know if it has anything to do with the diabetes, and I know because of the diabetes he doesn't cut a lot of weight. He came in at 182 for this fight. So I don't know if that's just what he walks around at or if he cut extra weight. or if he felt like he had to cut extra because of the travel, or something was thrown off. But it's a big concern for me that he fights with this medical condition. Now, I'm not one to tell anybody what to do, or especially with their career or what they do for a living, but I'd be concerned if I were someone close to Jordan Williams. That being said, I mean, he looked good. He definitely had his moments in the fight, and he was in some tough submissions, some tough chokes from Imavov, and he was using very unusual escape tactics. He was kind of like turning himself into the chokes a couple of times, and then just kind of gator rolled out of a few of them. Not very technical, but very effective. So, yeah, and Imavov just kind of stayed consistent throughout the whole fight and kept the pressure on, kept looking for those submissions. He was good at locking the chokes up, but he wasn't necessarily overcommitting. He was able to still come out on top whenever Williams escaped. I thought this was a fun fight, but yeah, you got to wonder why Williams faded so hard towards the end of this fight when he came in so light. So I don't know if there's something he could fix with his diet and go down to 170. That'd be a big change, though. But if he's walking around at 182, that would be a 12-pound cut. So he makes a few changes in his diet. He probably wouldn't have to cut that much weight to get down there. But I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not his coach. But that's probably the conversation I would be having with him after that performance. Let's see. Lima Lukbunmi getting the unanimous decision over Jinyu Frey. I thought Lukbunmi looked great in this fight. She's got that traditional Muay Thai style. Very calm, very relaxed. And Frey is huge for this division. I mean, she looks so muscular for 115 pounds. But Lukbunmi looked good. Her ground game troubles me a little bit. And then the other thing, I've talked about this about her in the past, is she's got that traditional Thai style, which is great as long as you know how to translate it to MMA. For example, in Muay Thai, they fight 3 rounds, similar to MMA, but they usually use the first round as a feeling out process. And by example, they won't throw any elbows, and they won't throw any head kicks in that first round. Usually, it's like a warming up process. And she has shown improvement on that, but she still seems a little bit laid back in that first round. So I would like to see her a little bit more aggressive, and work on the ground game a little bit more. But I think that her base is so strong that she's going to have a successful career in the UFC. And then Casey Kenney just beat the snot out of Haile Alateng. This was bad, man. I mean, his whole rib cage was bruised up, battered, tenderized. And I was just talking last week about how you never see the ribs turn purple so fast. I don't know what's going on in the UFC. Maybe it's just a conspiracy to prove that I don't know what I'm talking about. But here we have it, 2 weeks in a row, purple ribs. But yeah, he was getting nailed with some body shots. He was blocking every jab with his face, which is not for those of you who don't know a lot about striking. That's not what you want to do. Usually you want to get away from those punches or block them with your hands. Something that hurts a little less. No way. Not Alateng. He was blocking every single jab that came his way with his face. He was headbutting Casey Kenney's fist. So Casey Kenney looks great, man. It's amazing that he wasn't able to put Alateng away. That guy is really tough, but yeah, a lot of holes in that striking game that he's gonna have to figure out, like a different blocking strategy for strikes, other than like using your eye sockets to to parry punches. Uh, he's like, I'll just hurt his hands on my head. First fight of the night, Luigi Vendramini, coming back from a big loss in his last fight where he almost died. It looked like, getting the first round head kick knockout over Jetson Ayari. This was an impressive one, man. And the way he threw the head kick. So for those of you who didn't watch the earlier fights, the way he threw the head kick, he was at very close range, which shows a lot of flexibility, a lot of dexterity from Vendramini. So the fact that he was able to land that and then, followed it up with a quick combination as well. Very impressive performance from Luigi Vendramini. So that's it, man. This was a fun card. I mean, it was pretty strong. I'd say the only lull in the action was maybe that heavyweight co-main event, which, if I had to predict for you, that would be the lull in the action. And maybe some people enjoyed that fight. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh, but I just had in my head a different way that it was going to go. So that's that. UFC on ESPN 16. We'll put a bow on that. Now let's talk next week. October 10th, UFC Fight Night 179. It's so confusing the way they number these. It's on ESPN one week, and then it's Fight Night, whatever number the next week. Cheers to my buddy Cody, former training partner till he went and moved away to the other side of Florida. Might as well be on Jupiter. Yeah, so this is Fight Night 179. Marlon Moraes and Cory Sandhagen. And it's interesting. I was listening to how they were previewing this, and they made it seem like Cory Sandhagen has been on this meteoric rise in the bantamweight division, which confuses me because I saw his last fight, and it was against Aljamain Sterling, where he got absolutely smoked, just steamrolled in the first round and got choked in like a minute and a half. So it's interesting how they're kind of billing this fight. And obviously Marlon Moraes, one of the top bantamweights on the planet, maybe the best bantamweight on the planet on any given night, coming off of that split decision win over Jose Aldo almost a year ago in December 2019. So he's been out for a long time. So Sandhagen's going to be looking to bounce back from that loss to Aljamain Sterling, which took a lot of wind out of his sails. And Marlon Moraes is going to be looking to shake the rust off. So I don't know what we're going to see here. We're going to see, a Marlon Moraes who's going to be coming out guns blazing like we're used to him, or are we going to see him kind of temper it back a little bit because he doesn't want to blow all his energy because he's been out of there for almost a year? He's a big 135er. He's been known to kind of fade in fights in the past. He's known to be a really dangerous first round fighter. And what are we going to see from Cory Sandhagen? Are we going to see the methodical and thoughtful Cory Sandhagen that we're used to, or are we going to see a guy who's coming out there trying to redeem himself and anticipating a high-paced Marlon Moraes in that first round? The answer, I don't know. You'll have to tune in and watch for yourselves. UFC should be paying me to do these promos here. I actually got somebody to sign up for ESPN Plus yesterday as well, miraculously. As little as I endorse that that channel, and as shitty as it can be, it's sometimes the only place you can get the UFC stuff. So I kind of talk somebody into it. I don't know if I feel bad or if I feel proud that I was able to do that. And Cody tells me that he is in Jupiter, so I'm glad he put that joke together, because I said might as well be on Jupiter but he's in Jupiter, Florida. Hopefully still training jiu-jitsu out there. Co-main event, Fight Night 179. This is going to be an awesome fight. Makwan, Amirkhani, and Edson Barbosa. This is a big jump in competition for Amirkhani, and it's a fast turnaround too. I'm going to check real quick when the last time he fought was. It feels like it was just a few weeks ago for Mr. Finland here. And yeah, Danny Henry, July 11th. All right, so it wasn't that long ago. It seems like it just happened. And it was a quick fight. He got that anaconda choke early in the first round. This is an interesting one. Both really good strikers. I would give Amirkhani the grappling advantage here, but good luck taking Edson Barbosa down and getting close enough to him and dealing with those leg kicks on the way in. So this is a really fun fight. This is a really good top of the card here. I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on this card. Barbosa, of course, coming off that really close split decision loss to Dan Ige. A lot of people, myself included, thought Barbosa should have won that one. But, that's just the way it goes. And he had the split decision loss to Paul Felder. And after that one is when he moved down to featherweight. So this is going to be interesting. Barbosa, really a guy who should be a lightweight, in my opinion, against a guy who, Amirkhani, who's not going to get tired at featherweight, who's going to have a pretty decent cut. And yeah, that's a really exciting one. And then we got the heavyweights, Ben Rothwell and Marcin Tybura. That's a fun fight. Ben Rothwell is having a bit of a resurgence as of late. Coming on two straight wins. So his last fight, he had the win over Ovince St. Preux. That was a weird fight. But before that, he had the knockout of Stefan Struve. So, it seems like he's on the upswing here. And Tybura is always tough. Really good grappler, really well-rounded. And he's got 2 wins in a row, too. All right, so this is interesting. Tybura is young for heavyweight, 34 years old. That's like he's a freshman for the heavyweight division. Let's see. Marcus Perez and Dricus Plessis. I can't pronounce his name, so we won't get into that one. Alan Badeau against Tom Aspinall. Aspinall made his debut, I believe it was right before the pandemic happened, and he looked phenomenal. The guy is 8-2, all finishes, 7 knockouts, 1 submission. He's taken this on short notice. Okay, so yeah, it was July. So it wasn't before the pandemic. Man, my calendar's all messed up. I can't remember when anything happened. But yeah, made his debut against Jake Collier, 45-second knockout back in July. That was on the Whitaker versus Till card. Alan Badeau, if you haven't seen him, he's the guy, he's got the Mr. T haircut. I don't know if that's intentional or if that's just his thing. But big dude, 6'3". He's from France. 7 knockouts. And this is his UFC debut. So this is a fun one, man. This is like they're bringing in these 2 heavy hitters that knock out everybody. Hopefully we don't get the same situation we had last night with Yorgan de Castro and Carlos Felipe. Hopefully, this one kind of delivers. But Aspinall taking this on very late notice, I believe a week's notice. So should be fun. What else we got here? I'm going to give you guys a sleeper fight that you may not notice, and it's way down on the prelims. Giga Chikadze and Omar Morales. So Omar is 10-0, and Chikadze is one of these fighters that's coming out of Georgia, which we're seeing more and more of them. And his striking is very impressive. He's got all decisions in the UFC so far, but I feel like he's just kind of finding his rhythm. And I expect a really fun fight between Chikadze and Morales. I think this is just going to be a good matchup where one of these guys is going to emerge as, the next big thing in this lightweight division. And it is not the debut for Morales. He's had a couple of fights in the UFC. He had a knockout on the Contender Series, and then he's got 2 decision wins. I'm predicting that we're going to see one of these guys have a breakout night and have a career performance here. So let's keep an eye on that fight on the early prelims. And then I'll give you guys one more. Impa Kasangane against Joaquin Buckley. That's going to be a fun one. Kasangane is undefeated, 8-0. And Buckley 10-3. So both of these guys fairly young in their career. And Buckley's coming off that TKO loss to Kevin Holland in August, but I wouldn't measure him by that. This is a guy he's got heavy hands for this welterweight division. He's got 7 knockouts out of his 10 wins. I think that's going to be a fun fight. Very fun fight. All right, cool. So we had a lot of fun action over the weekend. There was some Bellator. I didn't watch it, but if you guys did and there was anything worth watching, please do let me know. Reach out to me on social media. I'm really enjoying this Oktoberfest beer here. I just made some chili with it. If you guys want to check that out, I did a little Instagram story talking about it. It's not nearly cold enough out to be having chili. I'm still wearing shorts today, by example. But, it was colder than it's been here in Florida. It's not like you start sweating as soon as you walk outside like it was all summer. It was a brutal summer, so I'm glad to have a little relief from that. MMA on the Rocks t-shirts are on sale through our friends at Team Reaper. TeamReaper1.co is the website, I believe. I'll put the link right in the show notes here, wherever you happen to be listening or viewing or consuming this podcast. And hoodies are available too. So if it is actually fall weather, wherever you are listening or watching from, then grab yourself an MMA on the Rocks hoodie. Those are available too. And I'll post a link for those down in the show notes as well. Wherever you're listening, please do leave me a review. It helps people find the show. It helps me out. I can brag about it to my friends. I don't brag about it to my friends. I very rarely even talk. You could probably know me for years and not know that I do a podcast. You know me, my personal life. In any case, all that stuff is on sale. And even if you don't want an MMA on the Rocks t-shirt or hoodie, go check out what they have over there at Team Reaper, because they give a lot of money to charities, different charities. They're doing a lot of stuff for breast cancer awareness this month. They work with some veterans charities as well. And then they sponsor a lot of local fighters. So go help out a local fighter, buy their t-shirt from Team Reaper. They take care of the local fighters very well. They give them a good commission on the t-shirt sales. So if you have a local fighter in the Tampa area, actually they sponsor fighters everywhere, but if you have a local fighter who fights for Team Reaper, you could really help them out. It takes a lot of sacrifice to get into this sport, and you got to have money to eat clean and pay for good training and things like that. So it's always good to help out these local fighters, and then you get yourself a t-shirt in the process. So go do that. If you don't want to support this podcast, then go support a fighter. I'm good with either. It's all good energy that you're putting out there. I think that's all I got. I do want to hear from you guys though. Remember your homework. Let me know who got you into MMA. I want to hear those stories. And I also want to hear what your favorite Oktoberfest beers are, because I have a feeling I'm going to be diving in a couple of different ones for the month. I do have my favorites, my go-tos. This was a new one, the Fest Beer from Bitburger, but I did really enjoy this one. I would drink this one again. So, as always, this podcast has been brought to you by whatever I'm drinking during this podcast, and in this case, it's Fest Beer from Bitburg, Germany. All right, folks. I think I've taken up enough of your time, but please do send me your feedback. Let me know what you're thinking and drinking out there. Remember, stay anti-prohibitionist. Other than that, I don't give a shit who you vote for. That's up to you. That's your business. We don't get into that here because we're just here for a good time. All right. Until next time. Cheers, everybody.